Hey everyone, it's Elaine. In this video, I wanted to talk about whether the Iglesia and Cristo is considered a patriarchal, militaristic sky god religion. And if you're thinking yes, it's true. And the reason why I say it's a militaristic sky god patriarchal religion is for a lot of reasons, and we'll get into that shortly. But let's first address the fact that I used to be an INC member. I was born and raised in it. I was offered as a baby, also known as handog. I don't know if I'm saying that properly. But anyway, I left in my early 20s and I started deconstructing, I would say, ever since I was like a teenager, but I didn't start hardcore deconstructing until I went to therapy. And that's when I started to heal and really get in touch with my Filipino roots and really get to know myself outside of the religious cult environment. And I really got to understand what I valued, and that has informed the way I live my life to this day. So when we think about a patriarchal system, you probably have heard that word get thrown around a lot, like, oh, fuck the patriarchy, like this and that. And when people are referring to that type of system, it's because it's typically viewed as an oppressive type of system. When we compare it to like an egalitarian system where like people are viewed as equals and there's equal opportunity, that's when we're talking about a more collaborative type of system. With a patriarchal system, it's usually structured in rank. So we see that in the Iglesia and Cristo. My membership first, then there's the husband, and then the wife comes secondary, almost like a helper. We see that in the doctrines, Adam was first, and then God took the rib from Adam and made a woman, right? That was the foundation for also a patriarchal view and outlook of how women are secondary to men. We can get into that later. And then the children, and then the dog or maybe the pet at the bottom, right? So that is a patriarchal system where men, and we often hear God as a he. Oh, he, I give my praise to the man up above. Like he's a guy basically, if you want to talk about pronouns, right? But basically, a patriarchal system can be very oppressive, especially if you have a marriage and the man holds really dearly to those type of ideals and values and sees the wife as more of a helping role instead of an equal, and that kind of conflicts with Filipino culture and Filipino values, because one of the beautiful Filipino values is the sense of kapwa, this shared humanity, and like this type of like I see you and me, and I see you and me, and that's we kind of look at each other as equals in the Filipino culture, especially prior to being colonized by Spain for 500 years, and then after that America colonized us. And really where that patriarchal system, it first started with Spain, because if we look at Filipino history, before Spain and America came over, we were viewed, how we practiced our religion, or how the Filipino people practiced their religion, was through animism. So they saw like the sky and the trees and the nature around them as their gods, right? I believe one of the main gods was Bathala. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you know Filipino gods before colonization, please feel free to leave your comments of your favorite earth-based gods below. I would really like to know more about that. That's something that I want to research more, which is really cool, I think. But basically, patriarchal ideals were infused by Catholicism as well as Christianity. When America came over, they brought over Christianity, and Christianity essentially is a patriarchal type of religion, and Islam as well as Judaism are also considered patriarchal, militaristic sky god religions. And sometimes when we look at Islam or Christianity, for example, and we take it to the far end, the extreme end, that's when we see cult-like religions emerge, such as the Iglesia and Cristo. It's not your typical Christian religion. It's more extreme. It's in the fact that there's You can't marry outside, you get expelled. There's more type of extreme rules, and that's why it would be classified as a cult, because also too they believe that everything the leader says, the prophet, which I believe now would be considered Eduardo V. Manalo, like everything he says is true, nothing he says is false. That's also that characteristic and that quality is considered a cult-like quality. When everything the leader says you obey without any question, you don't criticize it. It just, whatever he says goes. So I'm sure if he was like, we all need to jump off this bridge, like if it's quoted in the scripture and they make it sound like it's part of God's plan, then I'm sure most people would follow it, unless you have critical thinking and you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense, So that's not a dig, I'm just using that as an example. But basically, what I was trying to say about patriarchy is that this type of system can be very oppressive for girls. But some people like the structure of a patriarchal type of religion. They thrive under it, especially if the woman feels comfortable playing a secondary role, and is happy with being the helper. Then if it works for you, it works for you. You know what I mean? But for some people, this type of system, it doesn't work out, and it can cause a lot of harm when the man doesn't view the woman like equally. Okay, so let's take it back to the Filipino culture before Spain and America came over and infused their patriarchal ideals. The Philippines used to be an egalitarian society. That's why we have a lot of, we see and hear a lot of our uncles and aunties mix up the he and she. They mix up the pronouns a lot, because if we take it back to our culture and our roots, the men and women were seen as equals. There were no pronouns for him and her, because we were just all equals. A shared humanity, something that is so representative of the Filipino people. That's why when a lot of people visit the Philippines, they're like, oh, everyone's so friendly, everyone's like, oh, come and eat, because it's like deeply ingrained in our blood to view each other as equals, so that kind of conflicts with the patriarchal system of the Iglesia and Cristo. And that's where I had a lot of issues, because it was like, this sense of shared humanity isn't something that is unique to the Iglesia and Cristo. Like, how can we give, this is what I'm going to bring up, how can we give back, participate in all these charities, like, here's some free food, but by the way, you're going to hell if you're not a member. Like, that just did not sit well in my mind. So that's how I knew it was also a cult. And then so basically, I'm kind of veering off here. What I wanted to say was, we were an egalitarian society before Spain and America came over, and Felix Y. Manalo, where he got those ideals, he got them from American European values. Patriarchy is not just unique to Europe. I mean, there's a lot of other countries that practice patriarchal views and ideals and have them in their systems, like religion. But before, we heard the doctrine of, we took the rib out of Adam, some islands in the Philippines viewed men and women as equals, because there's like a folk tale that a man and a woman emerged simultaneously from a bamboo stalk, and that formed a lot of the pre-agricultural societies in the Philippines. Women were seen as equals, if not higher than men in some societies. An example of that would be the babaylan, which was a healer in a lot of Filipino communities. I have this book here called Babaylan. I got it when I was in graduate school, and I deconstructed a lot with this book, especially after I left the Iglesia ni Cristo. I deconstructed patriarchal systems by reading this book. I learned more about my heritage and my culture, and I'm proud to be Filipino American. I'm proud of the value of kapwa, of brotherhood and unity, and seeing each other as, that value of, like, you see me and you, and I see you and me. And I think that's a beautiful Filipino value that conflicts with Iglesia Cristo's patriarchal ideals, which essentially stem from European colonization. So if you have any comments about what I discussed today, if you have any other ideas regarding patriarchy, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you want to check out this book, I highly recommend it if you want to continue on your deconstructing journey. And I will talk to you guys in another video. Bye!